So, you know, I think one thing that led me to you a little bit is just trying to find someone who's willing to discuss this subject.
Hmm.
Somewhat shockingly, and maybe it's because I'm in Taiwan and I'm 12 hours off, like, so I'm asleep when you're awake and vice versa. So it's hard to reach the tech journalists, and I'm just trying to give the benefit of the doubt. But my sense is after several months, I mean, since last summer, almost a year of trying to focus on not writing code for this, but trying to contact um, an organization or journalist to write about it. My sense is that many think that this is okay, or that we just shouldn't talk about it. This sort of secret removing of content. So the conversation that you see in public generally now, with the exception of maybe discussion about the Twitter files in early December of last year, where they did bring up something about visibility filtering, which was Twitter's shadow ban. With the exception of that, the conversation is all about, what content should get removed. The discussion of how content is getting removed is not happening. So I hope to jumpstart that conversation somehow.
Yeah.
I am not quite the I never imagined myself to be any kind of public speaker, but I just thought I could build a website. In fact, I thought this would be a 2-week project in the beginning. I thought, oh man, this is nuts. Like I noticed that my own comment had been, after 6 years of using Reddit, in fact, I noticed I was looking for like a data science-y project to work on. And there was this data set of Reddit comments that somebody had collected. And I was like poking around the Reddit API and trying to see what I could do with it. And then I noticed that like one of my highly upvoted comments had been removed, but I knew that it still looked to me as if it was there because I had like gone back and seen it there. So immediately I just realized, well, this is like completely unexpected. And I bet I could build a tool that shows when this happens, and people would like it. And then everybody will know in a couple of weeks because it'll just go viral on its own. Because that's how the truth works. It just goes viral, right? Little did I know that's not how it works. And that was almost 5 years ago in 2018. And I had continued to assume along the way here that a story would just come out on its own. And I thought for sure once I started to reach out to places like the ASCLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, all these organizations that have free expression in their mission statements or their priorities, would surely be interested in this topic. But it's sort of become so ingrained in internet culture, and I've had to do some research myself to understand where this came from. Because at first my impression was, well, okay, this is just on Reddit, and that was, that seemed bad enough to me. And I thought it was, to be honest with you, I thought it was isolated to being abused in a certain portion of Reddit. So as I perceived it at the time that I looked at this in 2018, I went straight to Donald Trump's subreddit, which was called The Donald. And not only were the things that you would expect to be removed got removed, comments, say, supporting Hillary Clinton or whatever, criticizing Trump from clearly left-leaning users. But there were also, criticisms from subscribers of the Donald that were also removed. Things like, I don't like that General Mattis is leaving, for example, might get removed. Or, I'm not concerned trolling, but this bill is not us about
Mhm.
some bill about immigration or something. So it's just sort of lets you manipulate the apparent consensus, I think, to maybe give the sense that there is unity or there might not be. Now, let me just say, because I don't want to try to make the point that this is just uh, right leaning people who are making use of this tool. This tool is all over the internet. That I'm just describing. That was my perspective at
Mhm.
the time uh, when I first started working on this, and now I look at it and I see comments getting removed by not just by moderators but by the administrator, the employees of Reddit, for saying things like, um, men are not women,
Mhm.
and about the trans topic. And I'm interested in that subject, uh, both because I have a kid and also because it's directly related to this speech thing. And I think it's fine if forums are moderated, uh, but when you take it to where it's secretly moderated, it's starting to look a lot more like these darker periods in our past,
Mhm.
uh, McCarthyism, communism, the issues with the printing press. And I suspect we may find ourselves in, that period again. This is like one of those new technologies that few people really kind of know how it works. So it allows some power plays, I think,
Mhm.
that the rest of us just are not totally tuned into.
When you're talking about the even just your own experience of here's this comment I had, and oh, well, maybe just nobody replied to it, or no big deal. I'll just do another one, and you have no idea. You're right. The concepts that are just inherent to something like Reddit. Well, we'll get off the internet for a second. Let's just say you're at school as a kid. You say something that is off-putting. You get in trouble by the teacher. Your friends are like, "Dude, that wasn't cool. You shouldn't have said that." You're getting those kind of natural type of consequences in your language and your behavior, and that helps shape things. It, you're doing that same thing on the internet, and maybe by a moderator to say, look, dude, here's the rules. We have these rules laid out. You clearly broke number 3 or whatever. Here's your ban or whatever the punishment is. But you're getting that clear consequence. And what you're describing there, that's not happening at all when that is being used. So behavior's not being changed. There's just silence. And silence is not the way that not just these platforms are supposed to work. It's how a healthy society, even with free speech, especially, it's not about saying things that are necessarily right. You can have your free speech and be as way off base as possible, but you're going to face consequences for saying something down. If you come up and say something really mean about my wife in front of her, like, you're gonna get a consequence. I'm not necessarily doing a threat thing, but we're gonna either walk away from you. I'm gonna tell you, hey, stop talking about my wife that way. Consequence. But if I just cease to have that person talk, like it's like they never even existed, again, there's no consequence there. And I that is just so it's so damaging to the online discourse. And I appreciate your kind of grace and trying to give the benefit of the doubt to some of these publications and organizations. um, I I don't necessarily think that any of that grace is necessarily what's deserved there, because there are enough people out there. Here's what I would say: enough people in the know, um, that something could and should be said about it, and that sounds like pretty willful ignorance, just putting hands over my ears, and acting like it's not there. Yeah, that's very
You're
dangerous.
spot on. You're spot on, Johnny. You're just smarter than I am. I mean, because of where you are and what you were brought up with, you're just more tuned into this than I am. And I'll say I was really excited to talk to somebody who studied psychology about this topic, because I always felt like it would be most obvious to you guys, the harm that this does. And you described it perfectly right there. Like, you're not letting people see the consequences of their actions. Now, if you go and have this conversation with anybody in person, in my experience, they will agree with you. Like, this should never happen. This should not be a thing. But if you have this conversation with somebody online, particularly anonymously, who is a moderator, they have several reasons why they need this sort of exception to decorum. They will say, we need it for spam, we need it for bots, we need it for trolls. And none of these arguments hold water. Okay, let's take bots, for example. Okay, these are coded up by a programmer who is trying to push out some message. Okay, if somebody has coded up something to send messages on the internet, they're going to check if those are visible, right? And so what this, and then once they figure out how it works, their ability to spread that message far exceeds any normal users, because they'll just be able to propagate it everywhere. Whereas for a genuine user, I have a background as a data scientist. It did not occur to me for 6 years while using, while commenting on the internet, that this would be something that a website, much less a popular website, would do. So it hurts genuine users more than it hurts bots. In fact, it strikes me as the position that spammers would take. That, if 10% or 50% or even 90% of my stuff gets removed, I don't care. I can always make more. Whereas, the rest of us, if you're like a good faith social media user, you're just like a real person. Forget the good faith, judgment. You're not going to spend all this time to, or even think to check, like, while you're logged out, whether your comment is visible to other people. So there are all kinds of arguments that moderators online will give to say that they need these tools, and I just don't think any of them hold up